Hello everybody, this is my 11th review of films to come out in 2025. Today I'm talking about Mickey 17. This is directed by Bong Joon-ho. This is his first movie since Parasite, which I think made everybody kind of interested or excited, because how the hell do you follow up Parasite? It's kind of universally considered a perfect movie. It swept the Oscars in a historic way for an international feature. But with this movie, Mickey 17, I immediately kind of held back my excitement a little bit, knowing that it was an English language movie. While I have liked every single Bong Joon-ho movie I've seen, I do highly prefer his Korean language movies. I don't know exactly why, there's just a very different vibe to them. I often feel that he has a little more passion with his Korean language movies. They're a little more intimate and dramatic. His English language movies usually feel a little less thoughtful and a little more like trying to be crowd-pleasy science fiction movies, but I still usually really like them. Mickey 17 is about Robert Pattinson. He's cloned 17 times as a group try to colonize a planet. This reminds me a lot of a YouTube series called SCP Confinement. This is a very nerdy reference, but if you know, you know. It's about a guy who can't die, and they're trying to like colonize and understand monsters, so they kind of use him as a guinea pig. That show had a awful 8th episode where it basically became softcore porn, so that was lame. But anyways, how is Mickey 17 in comparison to Confinement SCP? Would I recommend Mickey 17? No, I can't say I do. I did not like this movie. This movie attempts to tackle a lot of different ideas and concepts and conflicts, but a lot of them feel half-baked or just straight up abandoned. And by the end, it just felt like they were trying so many different things, none of them really landed, and the whole thing kind of felt like a bit of a mess. The whole time I watched this movie, I was kind of thinking to myself, wow, they really did not think through this concept. It doesn't really make that much sense. And plot holes are okay if you can put them aside, but this was like the entire premise for the movie, and I felt like it has some aspects that very clearly contradict each other. This movie is trying to be a comedy and a sci-fi movie at the same time, and the comedy almost never worked for me. I thought this movie had a really bad sense of humor. A lot of the jokes just come from people being apathetic, that like, oh, Mickey died again, like, oh, it's not a big deal, we can just clone him. And it kind of is going for like that mean-spirited vibe where they're like, we can just kill him, like it doesn't matter, it's Mickey. And it just kind of felt mean and really, really obvious. And as a sci-fi, as I said, some of these concepts just didn't really make sense and weren't well thought out. Some of the ideas are cool, and there's some stuff in the movie that did feel well researched, but a lot of it was just not satisfying for me, so I can't really recommend the movie on either front because I don't really feel like it was successful on either front. Also, this wasn't really advertised by the movie, but it's trying to go for like social commentary where Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette are like billionaires. It's a very clear like Trump-like character Mark Ruffalo is playing. You can tell immediately by the way he's speaking and shaping his mouth when he speaks. But also his supporters wear like red caps. A character's ear gets shot off in the movie. There's like a moment where a character does like a Hitler salute. So it was very, very clearly trying to make connections between like a Trumpian figure, which was hidden from the marketing, which feels weird. But it just felt so obvious, and it didn't really feel like there was that much interesting comedy there. This movie also has like pro-environment, anti-colonizing messages, and by the end of the movie, I didn't really feel like they landed very well. I'll talk about that when I get into spoilers, which, let's just do it. Let's talk about spoilers. Yeah, the end of the movie, they do colonize the planet, but they make friends with the monster characters. That was stupid. I mean, like, if the message was it's a movie that's like anti-colonizing other people, then maybe they shouldn't stay on the planet. Maybe the ending should have been they left. Maybe they shouldn't make friends with the animals. That seems kind of nonsensical to me. But to talk about the actual plot now that we're in spoilers, the movie basically starts off, you learn about Mickey and his past. There's this idea that's introduced that the people who are going to this planet to work there are all kind of trying to escape their lives because they have money problems or whatever. They're trying to get away from Earth. And I thought that was like a really cool sci-fi idea. They didn't really do that much with it, though, like everything in this movie. And the way they explain, like, the backstory of certain things was sometimes really annoying to me. Like, the way they explain Mickey's backstory, it's like, he was opening a macaroon shop because he was told that they would sell better than, like, burgers or something. And then he got caught by the mafia, and they tried to chainsaw him. And this other guy was cloned 3 times, and he was a killer of homeless people, and that's why people don't like the clones. But he also was at, like, a science play where he was a white blood cell. It felt like it was just trying to be weird and not in a funny or interesting or memorable way. It just kind of felt like you're trying too hard. What's the point of, like, all of these, like, quirky details? When Mickey gets to the spaceship, he meets this woman, played by Naomi Ackie, who at first is, like, a really basic love interest character, to a point where I was like, I don't feel like Mickey can pull this. Like, is this a hallucination or something? It just kind of felt fake. And then she disappears for a while as Mickey is being, like, killed and reincarnated. And then, you know, spoilers, what happens in the movie is that there's accidentally 2 of him. And she's all like, ooh, I get 2 of him. Like, that's cool. And it's very uncomfortable. It felt, like, dehumanizing on his part. Because she's like, ooh, I get to have 2? And, like, one of them is clearly very uncomfortable. And she's like, oh, you want to keep your secret? You're going to have to do this. And it felt like abuse, practically. It was very gross. But then for the rest of the movie, she's treated as this, like, pure-hearted animal lover who's gonna save the day and save the animals and become the new leader of, like, the colony. And I was like, what were you going for with this character? She felt so inconsistent. Also, there's a character in this movie who, when she realizes that there's 2 Mickeys, she's like, oh, if you want to keep your secret, Naomi Ackie, you're gonna have to let me have one of them. And that was, like, at first I was like, that's kind of an interesting or funny direction for this movie to go in, but then it's just immediately abandoned. They don't do anything with that. And the character who wants Mickey is, like, a lesbian in the movie or something. Like, I just didn't understand what they were going for. Again, so much of this movie feels half-baked and, like, kind of unexplained, so a lot of it had me scratching my head as to what they were going for. There's a scene where the monster characters, they look like isopods or something, they save Mickey and, like, bring him home so he doesn't die. And later in the movie, they're like, oh, do you think they were trying to save us? It's, like, treated as, like, a reveal, but it's not. It's so clear to the audience by that point, like, that the isopod monsters are, like, good guys. It didn't feel like a twist at all. My least favorite part of this entire movie, there's a scene where Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette in this movie have a dinner with Robert Pattinson's character. It's actually probably one of the best scenes in the movie. It felt just sort of goofy and cartoony in a way that was kind of over the top, and I kind of enjoyed. But later in the scene, Mark Ruffalo, like, pulls a gun to Mickey's head, and the gun has the most apparent orange tip. So you can tell it is fake. It is the fakest looking gun. And I was like, is this gonna be a bit? Like, there's no way that a director like Bong Joon-ho would, like, flub something like this. Like, this feels like an impossible goof. It has to be a fake gun in the context of the world. But then later, he whips it out during, like, an action set piece near the end of the movie, and it's a real gun. And so I was so annoyed because I was like, there's no way they made that mistake. Oh wait, they did. The writing of that ending too, I just do not like that kind of writing where it's like, we need Mark Ruffalo to be out in the open so, like, one of the monsters can kill him. How do we get him there? He wants to make a speech, like, just some random bullshit. Like, he wants to kill them all anyways. It doesn't make sense. Before I get to the biggest criticism I have of this movie, I do want to talk about things I liked about it. It's pretty well shot for the most part. There was some nice, like, interesting shot composition, and framing and camera movements, that kind of thing. Robert Pattinson does a really good job. At first, I thought the voice he was doing would be distracting the whole time, because it just felt so cartoony and distractingly unlike his real voice, and I thought it would get annoying, but honestly, by the end, I was totally fine with it, and kind of just impressed. Like, I keep getting impressed by his range in these different movies. Like, from The Lighthouse to Good Time to this, he just keeps proving that he has so much range as an actor. Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette were annoying, but there are certain points where they're so over the top, I kind of was enjoying it a little bit, but for the most part, they're just cartoon characters. That's kind of a backhanded compliment to the movie. What else? Other than the really fake gun, most of the production design looked pretty nice. There were some cool sets in the movie. Generally, the melding of effects looked pretty good. All that, like, technical stuff worked for the most part. I kind of like the music at certain scenes. There are ideas in this movie that are interesting. They're just not well executed. So let's talk about the worst one of all. The actual plot of the movie, the cloning of Mickey 17 times. That's why his name is Mickey 17, because he's been cloned, killed 17 times. And throughout the movie, characters ask him, what's it like to die? How is it dying? Do you hate dying? Like, Mickey, let us kill you. You're not even gonna care, because you'll just be resurrected, right? That seems like what they were going for, but the way they explained it did not make sense. I'll make an illustration so this is clearer. Basically, my problem with the concept is you have Mickey. His brain is scanned into this brick-shaped hard drive. His entire, like, memories and consciousness is copied onto the hard drive. Then they use him as a guinea pig and he dies in space or something. And then they reprint his brain and his entire body using the hard drive with their cloning machine. So when characters ask, hey Mickey, what's it like to die? He shouldn't remember, because he should only remember up until his brain was scanned into the hard drive. They don't cut and paste Mickey, they copy and paste him, meaning a Mickey has died, his consciousness is dead, he is gone forever, and they just make a new version of him, a copy, not a cut and paste. But they treated the whole movie like, hey Mickey, it's not a big deal if you die, right? Because you'll just be resurrected. No, it shouldn't work that way. The way you set up this concept, that doesn't make any sense. You're not following your own rules. And maybe the implication was that he doesn't remember dying, because whenever people ask him, he doesn't, like, answer. But it does seem like the implication is that he is being resurrected, essentially. I don't know, it was just so confusing. I'm rambling here, but I just remembered another big thing I didn't like about this movie. When they make a second Mickey, or Mickey 18 after Mickey 17, that's the point in the movie where there's two of them at the same time. Mickey 18 has a completely different personality from Mickey 17. A completely different personality than we've seen so far from the character. Because there's two of them now, so they were like, fuck it, we need conflict, they need to be different. And first off, that's so lame, because, like, it's so much more interesting, the idea of having, like, two of the same character. Just having a character interact with a character who looks exactly like him, but is basically just a new person, like, that's so much less interesting. But also, it wasn't set up. Like, when he has a different personality, me as an audience member was like, well, he's had a completely similar personality up until now, why would this one be any different? And then they kind of tried to correct it by being like, well, Mickey 3 was really clingy, and Mickey 5 was weird, according to my girlfriend, something like that. And it's like, well, you should have shown that. You shouldn't have, like, just said that after the fact. You should have set that up in the movie. So much about this was frustrating. So much about it did not make sense. I think as it went along, the pacing was worse. And I felt like a lot of the concepts they were trying to tackle. There's also, like, this thing where, like, sex is banned on the spaceship. Just a lot of ideas that were thrown together in a really, like, weird way that didn't work. Again, it's still a Bong Joon-ho movie. There's still things I like about it. Ideas I like here. But I gotta give this, like, a 2 out of 5. I'm sorry. I did not like this movie. Tomorrow, I will post a review for the movie Drop, so subscribe to stay tuned for that. Also, in the description, there is a link to my Letterboxd list ranking every single movie I have seen of 2025 so far. Here is the ranking so far, and where Mickey 17 is placed. There is also a link to my playlists, including all of my 2025 film reviews. That you can also find that on my channel page, and you can also find it on the left of your screen right here. Thank you for watching. Likes and comments are very much appreciated. See ya.